Powkiddy made another handheld? What is it, Tuesday already? Greetings, Retro Zoltan here. For your entertainment, I wanted to take a look at the Powkiddy X55, a product that just seemed to come out of nowhere. And just from the look of it, I thought it was going to be a sort of RGB 10 Max Pro 3 of some sort. But given they just released that as well, it's certainly not the case. So why this? Who knows? So let's dig into the Powkiddy X55, if it's worth even looking at this thing now, and how well it compares to what Ambernick is releasing.
Hold it, Coach! You just hold it right there.
Okay. All right. I can't pretend in this review that what happened to me didn't happen. What you were watching so far is the original review that I wanted to do until, well, stuff happened. Basically, I got a really bad unit that wasn't even meant to hit the streets. So bad that I had to change my video to something that was more of a warning. If you find yourself somehow intrigued about gaming handheld drama, I recommend my other X55 video called Powkiddy's Failure and mine. Quick summary though, if you don't want to watch the video, is that Powkiddy accidentally sent out some prototype units, which one of them I ended up getting. I bought used and I lost. So with my tail between my legs, I ended up buying a new one because I became obsessed with reviewing this in the state that Powkiddy wanted it to be in. So here we are. Back to the review. Let's hope my purchase was worth it this time. When the Powkiddy X55 was first released this year, the price was significantly higher than it is now. That's a big sign people didn't really look at this thing or like it. What was once around $140 in March is going for $75 in November? Are you kidding me? While I feel kind of ripped off, take note of this if you don't have one. A price difference like this can make a huge difference when considering a system that's good for you. If you bought one earlier this year, I'm starting a support group soon after this review. The Powkiddy X55 comes in a giant ass box, like a shoe box, containing the X55 protected by a foam insert reminiscent of the Ambernick standard. It's also filled with the usual fanfare of a USB cable, instructions, inspection information. Oh good, QC1 inspected this. He's a big follower of the channel. The X55 feels quite good. It's like they listened when I really enjoyed the feeling of the RGB Max 2. The shape, layout, weight, and feel of the X55 feels quite perfect, and I feel bold enough to say I really like it. I know there are others that find the plastic feeling cheap, but honestly, I have felt way worse, and this plastic feels fine. There's one problem though with the plastic. It's a bit of a fingerprint magnet, so much so I feel obligated to show me cleaning this thing off with a microfiber towel. Okay, there we go. The Powkiddy X55 comes in a metallic blue and now a black color, and that's it for now. Because of my mishap, I have both. The box says white is available also, but nothing yet on that so far. The layout of the front is quite nice, and if you're a fan of Nintendo, they really kind of honored the layout of the Switch Lite. Volume controls on the X55 are on opposite sides of the front panel, which sometimes confuses me. I'll get it eventually. Also, select and start, which I'm used to having right next to each other, is separated also. Man, they're really into button segregation. These buttons also, oddly enough, click super loud, but to some it's a satisfying click. What do you think? The D-pad really didn't feel that bad to me. It rotates okay, and unless if I push super hard, it doesn't go flush against the case. The inset analog sticks feel fine. Maybe at best it feels like a slightly cheaper version than what's on the Nintendo Switch. They also click down, which for some reason I wasn't expecting, and it's nice to have. Nicely done. The ABXY buttons feel okay, but you can mash them all the way down to the casing, but only if you try really hard. The top sports trigger and shoulder buttons, which are stacked like the Switch as well, which I love. These press easy enough, and for once I'm not going to say anything negative here other than the fact that they're loud also, so get ready for that too. The top has a huge reset button, which has me a bit concerned. It really should be a button you don't have to use very often. It has a headphone jack, an OTG DC charging port, an HD port, and one that's labeled a host port, which I'm guessing is another OTG port because, well, what else could it be? The bottom of the X55 has 2 stereo speakers, something I always want to see, so I'm happy about this. They sound pretty good, no complaints here. It also has the often loved 2 SD slot setup, one for OS and one for games. The back of the unit doesn't really have much other than the Powkiddy labeling. My blue one, which I concluded is a bad prototype, says Mode X55, a glaring spelling mistake missed by our well-loved Inspector QC1 also. Come on, QC1, you had one job. Something I haven't noticed on a handheld before is screw holes being covered by rubber inserts. I have no strong feelings on this, but it's tempting to remove them all, like in an OCD sort of way. So let's look at the stats of this thing pretty quick. The Powkiddy X55 rocks a Rock Chip RK3566, which is also in the Anbernic RG353M, which should be able to handle anything up to Nintendo 64. An impressive 5.5-inch IPS RGB screen, which happens to be the same as the Nintendo Switch Lite. And a 4,000 milliamp-hour battery, which should last you close to 4 hours. It also claims to have USB-C fast charging if you have the extra equipment. HDMI out, which I'm excited to test, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi. Now, my blue prototype X55 came with Emulation version 4.5. And I normally don't do or say this, but don't bother with Emulation. Upgrade to Jealous immediately. In the end of what I'm sure was not a fun ride for Powkiddy, they're releasing the X55 with Jealous OS for a reason. My black one, the one I intended for this review, came with Jealous, so we're gonna go with that. Right away I'm treated with music, which I'm often a stick in the mud about, but at least it's halfway decent and can be shut off after exploring through the menus of it. Fortunately for me, my purchase came with games that are already loaded onto my device, which play Sega Genesis and Mega Drive, MAME Arcade, Sega Master System, MSX 1 and 2, Nintendo 64, Naomi, Neo Geo, Neo Geo Pocket, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and Super Famicom. Also included is PC Engine, Pico 8, PlayStation 1, PSP, Capcom PlaySystem 1 through 3, Sega 32X, Sega Dreamcast, Nintendo DS, Final Burn Neo, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Game Gear, and a music player. Okay, Powkiddy, why not? By default, it looks like the aspect ratios are right, but the bezels are enabled to fill in the excess space as well. These aren't for everyone, so if you want to turn them off, you can easily do so by pressing Start, Game Settings, Decoration Set, and Set to None. Can the Powkiddy X55 play all the systems it claims it can? Technically, yes. Games for the most part work fine. Nintendo 64 didn't fail my Banjo-Kazooie test, but it didn't exactly play smoothly either. This means most of the N64 games will work fine, while others can only be categorized as playable. PSP games seem about the same. Not all games are going to be smooth, but are playable also. MAME testing, as usual, gave me a variety of results. Time Killers, one of my favorites, was choppy, but again, still playable. Everything else, including Dreamcast, is smooth and I'm not seeing issues. As always, tweaking helps here, but each emulator and system is different, so your results may vary. Controls work great and I have no complaints, other than by default, systems that don't normally have analog controls will let you use them as an alternative, unless if you remap them. Not the end of the world, but something I'm getting used to working out of the box. Something I found upsetting was that PlayStation 1 wasn't working, and I found that upgrading Jealous seemed to be the cure. Pretty upsetting for those who bought this purely to play the PlayStation, so for those not wanting to fool around with these sort of things, this is pretty much a fail. Turning on Wi-Fi was pretty cut and dry, and that worked flawlessly. I used it to try scraping for media, and now that I give it the right login, it's working fine in scraping screenshots with no issues. Bluetooth, something that failed miserably on my prototype, didn't exactly work on my non-prototype X55 either. When I tried to pair it to my Evo VR controller, it wasn't happening, which was fairly disappointing. I suspect this may be fixed in a future version of Jealous, but for now my specific device is going to have to wait. The HDMI out works fine, no issues here. It would have been better if we had a Bluetooth controller connected. You get the idea. Overall, I'm impressed with the power of the X55, despite the fact that I've been looking at the later Anbernic devices that can handle even more, but they're obviously more expensive. Powkiddy, as always, is the cheaper alternative, but you're taking a risk in quality. And sadly, I've been hearing stories that have me feeling pretty lucky with my second X55 so far. A watcher of the channel, Stockboy87, reported that he bought his used with a bad HDMI port, and another user, the Eden Lord, had a speaker suddenly go out. And BTort8750's X55 is now having battery issues. Are there more stories like this? Oh yes. Is there a quality issue here with the X55? You're damn right there is. So, do I recommend this? I want to say maybe, but I'm hearing too many stories about things breaking. Mine is fine for now, but for how long? I have no idea, and I'm afraid to find out. The Powkiddy X55 might be worth the gamble for the price, but given its history and just trying to get it released alone makes it in my mind a cursed item. And that's all I have to say about the Powkiddy X55. It's a thing and it's cheaper than the other systems, but now we know why. Sorry Powkiddy, I tried. I really did, but this one, you just need to try again. Thanks for watching, thanks for your support, and as always, I'll see you next time.